Our NSA leaker Edward Snowden has made a lot of enemies since he revealed government spying on Americans' phone and internet use. But one man he has openly praised is Bill Binney. Bill Binney is a former NSA analyst. He claimed that a data mining system he invented that the NSA rejected could have prevented the 9/11 attacks. He also says that after 9/11, the NSA misused the technology to spy illegally on Americans. Binney took his concerns to Congress, but says he himself became the target of government retaliation. The FBI raided his home and held Binney at gunpoint with his wife and son nearby. And then years later, in 2010, the Justice Department issued Binney a letter of immunity. I'm joined now from Washington by Bill Binney and his lawyer, Kathleen McClellan of the Government Accountability Project, a private group that supports whistleblowers. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, Bill, I'd like to start with you because we're playing this cat and mouse game with Edward Snowden. I mean, some correspondents think he's actually sneaked out of Moscow's airport, but where would he go if he did that?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, I think he should come back here and face the charges and go into court, because this issue really needs to be taken into the Supreme Court for resolution. I mean, this is fundamentally what they're doing in spying on all Americans and compiling all this information is a fundamental violation of our constitutional rights.
So you believe that Edward Snowden should come back even after what happened to you, because you went through the proper channels and the government retaliated against you?
Yes, but they never let me get into court. So, I mean, that was one of the things that I wanted to do, take this issue right into court. And if we couldn't talk about it in the court, which they'd try to silence you, I wanted to talk about it on the steps of the court, because this issue is fundamental to the freedoms of this country. I mean, even yesterday, I read a quote in the newspaper from a former lieutenant colonel in the East German Stasi. He said our surveillance program was only something they could have dream of. They couldn't even dream of when he was in the Stasi. I mean, that was my whole point all along, is that this is something that totalitarian states have done down through history. The KGB, the Stasi, the Gestapo, the SS, they've all tried to gather information to have power against the population.
So Edward should come home and expose all of that right in front of an American audience. I wanted to ask you two, both of you, about President Obama, because he seems to be softening his rhetoric when it comes to Edward Snowden. He said overseas, no, I'm not going to be scrambling jets to get a 29-year-old hacker. That's what he said in Dakar. And he said that he wouldn't call on China, he wouldn't call on Russia to extradite this guy or to capture him in any way, because he wasn't going to waste his time. What do you make of that? Is that a softening of tone, or is the United States government simply embarrassed because they can't catch this 29-year-old kid?
Well, no, I think what he's getting is feedback from our European allies and friends, because this is not just a threat to our democracy, it's a threat to theirs. This kind of knowledge being circulated among governments around the world is the danger to democracy everywhere.
And I think the Obama administration has launched an unprecedented war on whistleblowers and has attacked journalists and attacked hacktivists. And Edward Snowden is a whistleblower because he disclosed something that reasonably evidenced illegality, massive government illegality. And all of the rhetoric surrounding him, whether it's softened or not, is a transparent distraction from the real issue, which my client Bill Binney here exposed years ago, which is that the NSA is spying on millions of innocent Americans who the NSA does not suspect of wrongdoing. And I think the questions that needs to be asked are, why is the NSA collecting dossiers on innocent American people?
Well, although the president said that he wants to have that conversation, the president himself has not conversed very much about it, right?
That's right.
That's true. And in fact, they've classified these programs, and they've only been having this conversation as a result of Mr. Snowden's disclosures. So for the president to say that he welcomes this debate and then turn around and file a sealed indictment bringing Espionage Act charges against the person who brought this debate to the forefront, it seems pretty contradictory.
Well, of course, Edward Snowden's father, he wants to help his son in any way he can. He sent a letter to the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, saying that he believed his son would come back home under certain conditions, and these are the conditions. His father said if Snowden would not be detained or in prison prior to trial, he would come back. He said if his son would not be subject to a gag order, he would come back. He said if his son would not be tried, he said his son wished to be tried in a venue of his own choosing, and if that's possible, he would come back. How likely is it for the Attorney General of the United States to take this seriously, Kathleen?
Well, I don't know that, Mr. Snowden's father actually has been in contact with Mr. Snowden. I think that he said that he had not been in contact with him. So in that sense, I think it's a little premature to talk about any sort of serious dealing on that front. Additionally, I don't know that the Attorney General would be particularly sympathetic to making that deal, considering that the Obama administration has not relented in any case until absolutely forced. And the perfect example is that of another NSA whistleblower, Thomas Drake, that we represented at the Government Accountability Project. And that case collapsed under the weight of the truth. But it was not because the government decided to let up. It was because they were forced, because they had no case, and because of negative attention in the press. And I think that those are the situations. And if you look at the case of Bradley Manning, it's another perfect example. There, Mr. Manning has offered to plead to charges that would give him over 20 years in prison. Yet the government has insisted on bringing overzealous charges of aiding the enemy by making information public.
Well, he was a member of the United States military who just dumped documents willy-nilly. It's not like
Well, actually,
I think his case is actually different from Edward Snowden's, because Edward Snowden seemed to pick and choose. Bradley Manning seemed to just say, here's a bunch of documents, take them, WikiLeaks.
Well, I think they both picked and choose, but the aiding the enemy charge is particularly nefarious because of the First Amendment implications. The idea that by making information public, anybody could have aided the enemy is very, very nefarious in a country that has the First Amendment, which is supposed to protect free speech. And what we're talking about here is a control of information. And in a surveillance state, the whistleblower becomes the enemy. And that is not what this country was founded on, and it's not what the First Amendment encapsulates.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks to both of you for coming in this morning. Bill Binney, Kathleen McClellan. We'll be right back.
Thank you.